Chapter 5. The pristine snowflakes had begun to peacefully settle on the cold grounds of the residence. The guests, having all arrived suitably early, were tucked away out of sight within the warm walls of the large, solid stone house. Only Francis's car, parked outside on the large gravel driveway, was to be seen. The facade of normality was complete. However, a certain uneasiness plagued Francis. Up until this point, the planning of the evening had centered on the physical aspect of providing and catering for his guests. The rationale behind inviting Vasil was clear to Francis, and accordingly, the reason behind planning this surprise party was equally clear. The uneasiness stemmed from the fact, he thought, that the only person with knowledge of both rationales was himself. He had issues to discuss with Vasil, but there was almost never a safe moment to have such discussions, particularly given Vasil's high rank and his nationality. A murmur of anticipation echoed around the hall where the guests had congregated. One female member of catering staff continued to meticulously arrange the presents which had been brought by the guests on a table in the corner. It was difficult to fit all of them on the surface, but she managed to balance them all successfully. The last few guests had arrived, uncomfortably close to being late. However, everyone was now accounted for, and as long as no uninvited stragglers turned up, everything would go to plan. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to say a few words before our distinguished guest arrives this evening. Firstly, I would like to thank you all for arriving on time. That was very helpful, he said, as Melissa's frowns from the back of the room were blocked by the unified chuckles of the guests. She had chastised him about his sarcastic humour before, and he feared she would do it again once she got him alone. Secondly, I would like you all to feel at home and have a great evening. If it carries on snowing as it is, this may well be your home for the next few days. Now when the time comes, I will dim the lights in here and open the door for Vasil. When I lead him through, my darling wife will do the honours with the lights, and the rest, well, you know what to do. A brief applause preceded a return to the hum of chatter between the guests, and the scene was set for the evening. Walking between the crowd and picking up a glass of wine, Francis took a moment to scan through the faces, an array of officials and friends from his time in Bulgaria. Increasingly, as the evening had continued and the Russian and Ukrainian contingent of the party had arrived, he wondered whether he needed to drop a comment in conversation to the Ukrainians as to how he had managed to convince one of their Secret Service's top officials to pop in that evening. Taking a larger than average sip of wine and pacing towards the Ukrainians, he hoped that the excuse he had calculated with Vasil would be accepted, as they were, at the very best of times, like most others in the diplomatic professions, extremely suspicious. Walking through the guests, Francis was amazed that everyone had turned up to the event. He had hoped that most would, but he couldn't think of a single person who was missing. Not wanting to become distracted, he focused on how he was going to handle this situation. As he approached the small group of 6 officials whom he had invited from the Ukrainian embassy, he noticed how they stood barely 2 meters from the Russian guests. After all of the recent political issues between the former Soviet Republic and Russia, the Ukrainians preferred to stick by that which they knew rather than mingle with that which they didn't. Or did they perhaps just want to stay within earshot? This is where Vasil was different, and that is why he had to ensure that what he was about to say would be believed by the Ukrainians. "Good evening, friends," smiled Francis, with his hand stretched forward to greet the man who he knew best of all within the group. "Hello, Francis. This is a great party you've prepared here," said Georgi, while shaking Francis's hand. "The food is fantastic and this wine is just great. You must tell me who is catering for you. I have my wife's birthday soon, and she always complains that I don't do enough," lamented Georgi. "Sure, no problem. I've put a few of the caterer's cards out on the table just behind you. Please help yourself. So tell me, how you managed to get Vasil to come all the way up here. For sure you have not told him that it is a party for him, so how? We cannot even convince him to come for a drink with us after work on Fridays." The thick Ukrainian accent and the laughter behind the words masked the intended meaning. This was a question Francis predicted that he would be asked. I knew that he was leaving on Thursday, so I told him that as a parting gift for his hospitality at the conference a week ago, my wife Melissa had bought him a special gift. That part was true, but I don't think he knows anything about the party we have planned, grinned Francis, hoping that this was a sufficient explanation. "Ah, very good," laughed Georgi. "Maybe next time we want him to come out for some vodka, we will tell him we have a present for him." "Francis, let me introduce you to Stefan, who just started at the embassy 2 weeks ago. I was sure you wouldn't mind if I invited him." Turning to Stefan, Francis was surprised at how young he looked, perhaps 18 or 19, but hardly any more. He had blonde hair which was short and combed back. However, he made up for his lack of age with an abundance of style and dress sense. "Nice to meet you, Stefan. How have you enjoyed your first couple of weeks here?" "It has been very enjoyable, but I'm still settling in," Stefan said, in a perfect British accent. "Georgi, didn't you say that Stefan is based at your embassy? Is he Ukrainian or English?" I know. It will take us some time to get used to him as well. He is Ukrainian, yes, by birth, but when he was 5, he moved to England with his parents and stayed there until he was 13. He then returned to Ukraine after his parents tragically died in a car crash. He could not stay in England as there was nobody for him there, Georgi explained. "Yes. After my mother and father died, I left my school and friends to return to the Ukraine to stay with my grandparents in Kiev. I would love to work in London for the embassy there, but that is difficult," Stefan said, looking down towards the floor. "Don't worry. I'm sure it will work out. I am sorry to hear about your parents," said Francis, as the front gate buzzer sounded. Vasil had arrived, and the excitement in the hall was like ionized air after a lightning storm. Once everyone had found a place where they could hide, as out of sight as possible, Francis dimmed the lights in the hall before activating the gates to open. "Okay, everyone, keep quiet and wait here until Vasil walks in and I switch on the lights." Closing the door behind him, he left all the guests in the darkness, as well as his wife. The crunching of gravel under tires could be heard through the door. The party was just about to begin. Hi, my name's Antony Botting, and I'm the author of the Pebble in the Dark trilogy. If you'd like to hear more of this story, please subscribe to this channel and ring the bell below. See you next time.